I have a question for Richard Price about the consultation on the draft determination. Do you think that this consultation and the response you described of the industry, the customers, and the founders can achieve the aim of the negotiation phase that has been described by Professor Cave? If not, do you think that you could improve your mechanism by introducing such a consultation?
Thanks. Well, that's a very good, very timely question. So to say where we are, in the last periodic review, there was a degree of customer consultation. I think it is fair to say that although rail consumers have a certain voice, they do not have as much time as industry participants to involve themselves in those consultations. So it means that it's incumbent on us to work very, very hard to make sure that that voice is heard and listened to, and that we show in our determination how we have responded to it. One of the ways in which we've responded to it is through the mechanisms for the investments in the network, where we are in the process now of because these are very important in this control period. There'll be investment of about £12 billion in improving the network, improving stations, and so on. So we have said that before we approve any of the big projects, Network Rail has to demonstrate to us how it has consulted customers and directly reflected their views in the design, implementation of those projects. Customers won't have views on things like the technology of the transformers or the colour that you paint the doors in the depot. So, this is not customers dictating terms to the business, but it is making sure that they're reflected. For the future, we're very interested in seeing how we can go further with this. We say that we are the consumer authority as well as the regulator, and a fair degree of the legitimacy of what we do as a regulator has to reflect, the fact that we are in some ways a proxy for the end user. As interestingly in this industry is the government. So we're looking at ways for the next periodic review in which we can draw much more on making sure that both the train companies and Network Rail have consulted their customers, that there is a distinctive customer voice, recognising it will be varied across the country, and learning from what, for example, colleagues in the water industry have done, where some preferential treatment is possible, where businesses can show that they have made a really good job of understanding what customers want. So we've made some progress, but it is definitely an area where we feel there's further to go.
Une deuxième question de Monsieur Stern.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say that the question, I'm going to talk in the next session more about both customer negotiations and customer contracts and so on. One of the real issues here is who is the customer? Okay? And thinking about Cécile, Georges, if we're talking about the distribution network, are we talking about the power stations who are using the network? Are we talking about the people who are buying the electricity or selling the electricity back? And so there are different groups of consumers, businesses and households, and they have very different interests. And a part of this whole question is doing that. And it seems to me that in railways, the question of who is the customer is among the most difficult in all of the industries.
Merci pour cette remarque. Une question.
Bonjour, je suis François Cohard, je suis le président de l'ERFA, qui est l'association des opérateurs alternatifs fret à Bruxelles, et j'ai une question à Richard Price. Je suis désolé, je m'adresse à lui en français, ce qui lui évitera d'avoir mon terrible accent anglais. Vous savez, Richard, qu'il y a une réforme ferroviaire en France qui vise à la réintégration du gestionnaire d'infrastructure dans la SNCF, et je voulais savoir d'abord si pour vous cette réforme est de nature à générer les incitants nécessaires à améliorer le système, et si ce n'est pas le cas, quel conseil donneriez-vous aux régulateurs français pour rendre ce système meilleur et plus incitatif à la performance?
Okay. So, thank you for that challenging question. So, look, I'm not going to comment on the reforms to the French railway system. Some reflections on the UK system, I suppose, might help. We of course, there is ongoing debate all the time in the UK. Did we do the right thing in vertically separating or not? There is a movement which is called Bring Back British Rail. With lots of nostalgia and people remembering the heady days of nationalisation. But when you contextualise, the questions, would you like reintegration, and you look at the sort of scale of the benefits that have been achieved over the period, partly through, improving transparency, partly through, introducing commercial pressures in the space between the operators and the infrastructure business. Actually having. I talked about the consultation process, which involves the train operators. They don't speak with one voice. They have different customers. They have different, route by route. They have different commercial interests. It's really interesting to see that when you talk to them, they have very different sort of commercial models and commercial drivers, different ways of serving their consumers, and that prompts a fair degree of innovation. So, sorry, I'm dodging the question, I know, but For me, I think it has been possible in Britain to achieve and retain the benefits of coordination across a network, and retain those network benefits, while at the same time, accommodating with and indeed encouraging a large increase in passenger demand. As you know, a very significant increase in freight demand. We have the last week we had. The record freight volume movement figures on the network, which is great. Significant improvements in punctuality, both for freight and for passengers. We talk about Network Rail not quite meeting its regulatory targets, but the fact is that customer satisfaction and punctuality are very close to an all-time high. So, and on a more congested network. So. I think that the sort of level of transparency and differentiation and plurality that you get in a system which is, vertically separated gives rise to those sorts of pressures and scope for innovation, and I think we've reaped the benefits of that.
Une autre question dans la salle? Alors, du coup, je vais en profiter. Moi, j'ai une question pour tous les deux, Richard et Cécile. J'ai entendu parler de plusieurs centaines de millions d'euros pour mener des études, réduire la symétrie d'information, collecter les bonnes données. D'un point de vue régulateur français, en fait, j'aurais cette question. Quel est le coût global de la mise en œuvre d'une régulation incitative? Alors ça, c'est le premier point. Est-ce que ça coûte énormément et finalement, est-ce qu'on peut en tirer vraiment les bénéfices par rapport au coût d'investissement? Et deux, pour rebondir un peu sur ce que disait François Cohard dans la perspective d'un projet de réforme portant réforme ferroviaire, quels sont les prérequis nécessaires aux régulateurs pour mener à bien cette mission? Je pense notamment à l'article, ça doit être le 354.1 du Code de l'énergie, qui donne les pouvoirs aux régulateurs pour collecter ces informations. Donc cette question à tous les deux.
Alors peut-être sur le coût, je crois que comme en régulation incitative, il faut regarder le coût net ou le bénéfice net. Si l'on regarde les gains de productivité avec en même temps une amélioration de la qualité d'alimentation et de la qualité de service des opérateurs de plus de 1% par an, on est à 1% de plus de 10 milliards. Donc je crois que les coûts d'études sont très largement amortis en quelques années. Après, est-ce que ces tendances poursuivent ou pas, ça reste à déterminer. En tout cas, il me semble que par rapport à un monde précédent où au ministère, il y avait l'équivalent d'une demi-personne occupée à gérer les tarifs de l'électricité et qui ne pouvait guère, toute brillante qu'elle ait pu être, que avoir un avis sur quelques slides, quelques diapositives de EDF, il me semble que les coûts sont mieux connus et que les incitations ou que les performances souhaitées sont plus aisées à mettre aujourd'hui qu'hier. Il me semble qu'il y a également un atout majeur, c'est que ça pose la question de ce que l'on veut faire. Ça pose la question des objectifs à fixer au monopole. Il me semble que par le passé, en tout cas en France, c'était une question qui était vue de manière bilatérale, en tout cas historiquement, entre l'État et l'opérateur. Je ne doute pas que l'État se soit entouré de tous les sachants et toutes les représentations de parties prenantes. Il n'en demeurait pas moins que c'était un contrat entre l'État et l'opérateur et que les discussions récentes qu'on vient d'avoir sur l'implication de l'ensemble des parties prenantes, de l'ensemble des clients, quels clients y a-t-il et quels sont leurs objectifs à eux est important dans un contexte d'autant plus dans un contexte français où les grands opérateurs historiques sont en même temps pour beaucoup encore propriété de l'État et que pour faire passer des réformes, par exemple l'ouverture, la transformation en société anonyme d'EDF, puis l'ouverture du capital, puis tout un tas de réformes, la séparation en entités différentes, les hausses de salaire ont été, si ce n'est bénies, voire impulsées au sommet de l'État.
So my answer, first of all, I think it's true to say that across all sectors and probably all countries, we haven't done enough systematically to evaluate the performance of economic regulation, and I'm really keen that we do that, and we're sort of putting some pressure on ourselves in the UK to do just that. That said, I mean, I think in rail in the UK, you know, there are some pretty strong headline facts. So the fact that, you know, over the last 2 control periods, the effect of the efficiency gains has been to save something like £20 billion over the period, compared with where the efficiency started. And visibly, you have seen that money, in a sense, handed back to government, but then reinvested in really quite dramatic improvements in the network, both to cope with additional growth. And also, frankly, to improve the customer experience. So you see these fantastic investments in stations like King's Cross in London, for example, and distributed across the network. So I think in terms of and improvements in punctuality. So I think you can see the value of the efficiency gains. I think we've been less good, frankly, at valuing the customer benefits, but there's no question that they are there and they're real because to some degree you can see them. And I suppose in terms of powers to generate additional information, I think the power of Martin talked about it before and Cécile too. The power of using that comparative information. It doesn't give you all the answers, but it allows you to ask in a much more subtle and precise way questions about, why are these costs here higher than over here? Are there good reasons? Well, maybe there are, but maybe there aren't. And that really helps you to probe in a different way. The final thing I'll say is that, we are embarking on a live experiment within the ORR, because we have just been asked by the UK government to perform a cost and performance monitoring role for not the railways, but the Britain's strategic highways network, the motorways, which is the first time this has been done. So we will be watching ourselves very closely, as will a lot of other people, to make sure that the provision of this information genuinely, contributes to a better understanding and an improvement of the network's performance and efficiency. And we'll let you know how we go.